Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to Ireland at this cross-cultural business skills online lecture on the Republic of Ireland. I am not alone. Rachel Caird and George Kenny are the keynotes. I'm just the introducer, and we want to take you to the lovely Green Island. It's a place that actually, as a child, I live myself in Dunleary, and we have had for, I think, over 30 years, a beautiful cottage in Donegal. So for me, Ireland is really, in my youth, that is the thing. Ireland and Paris, those are the two places that I always spend time several times a year. And at the time, it was not that easy. You need to take ferries all the way, and people didn't fly then so much. So it was really a trip. So for me, Ireland is yeah, a little bit home, I should say. Mostly because of the music. I think Ireland is so famously musical, and that I think is what sets it apart from a lot of other cultures. Is that there's so much music, and people have all this traditional music. It's still alive. You still see it in pubs, and it's very active. It's a world I know quite well. And at my own place in the Netherlands, where I grew up, we always had the Irish drums or the tin whistles or fiddle or tin fiddle or concertinas. And even people with two spoons can be really rhythmic, and there's so many well-trained voices. So for me, it is also an island of music. And that brought me to Ireland myself. My dad was a fanatic collector of Irish fiddle tunes, the historical traditional music, which is breathtaking if you know a bit about it. In Amsterdam, there's a lot of places where you can actually there's a live folk scene in this country. So I went always to Ireland, but also my parents organized these fiddle festivals at my house. We would have a weekend with hundreds of fiddlers and drunk Irishmen hanging around here and there. So for me, it's very much part of growing up. And I'm very used to having Irish people staying over for a longer time. He wrote some books about it. So in short, I always spent a lot of my youth in the beautiful islands. I think that's my introduction, but we have two real Irishmen that I would now like to give the floor to.
Yeah, so as Irish people, we love to celebrate our culture. So it's not just about wearing green on Paddy's Day and waving shamrocks for us. It's about celebrating and using our language, music, and playing our sports. So we haven't had the easiest history, but I believe keeping our music, stories, language alive is what helped a lot of people get through these tough times. So still to this day, you'll hear traditional music coming out of your local pubs. And there's a big flagkill held every year to highlight traditional musicians. So everybody's played GAA, which is football and hurling. It's in every area of the country, and communities come around and come together to celebrate local teams. And great pride when people play county. Although the language isn't spoken everywhere day to day or spoken very fluently, we can see a clear rise in our generation's interest in it. So Irish influencers even have started using it in their videos to encourage the younger generation to use it even more. So wearing Irish symbols as well is very important. For example, the claddagh ring, which you can see pictured there, is a traditional ring from Galway that represents love, loyalty, and friendship. It has a unique design, as you can see, and people wear it to represent what type of relationship they're in. It's been printed on T-shirts, and people even have it tattooed to show and celebrate their culture. So our culture is ever expanding. Traditions are being brought into more modern day life, which is something we take great pride in celebrating.
Just a picture. It takes 30 minutes.
The Irish language is strongest in the Gaeltacht regions, which would be in Galway and up in Donegal and places like that. So in these local communities, they speak it day to day. As a child, like I went down to Galway for 3 weeks in the summer where you had to speak Irish all the time. And you were punished if you didn't, because we learn it in school. It really helped us build the language, and the people in these areas really help keep it alive. So it connects modern life with deep heritage and keeps everyone, it kind of brings you back and keeps it in a more modern, fun sense. So here you can see some Irish names. One thing that people never seem to be able to wrap their head around is how to pronounce some names. So we have some examples here. Girls' names on the left and boys on the right. So Ashling, Nisha, Tig, Seamus, Oisin. I have friends with all of these names, and when we go abroad, people never know how to say it. Oisin is Osin, or Kieran, they don't even know where to start. So there's a couple of examples there.
Thank you. That's something that actually often, yeah, it's tough.
And then when your surname in Irish, it carries a lot of meaning. So your surname gets translated in Ollscoil. So for a girl, your surname is put with Ní, which is short for Inon, which means daughter of. And boys use O or Mac, so descendant or son of. So they're part of your cultural identity. If you're introducing yourself to someone in Irish, you would use this. So for example, my name is Rachel Ní Corja, George's is Georgia Quine, and Sanders is Alistair McShawn.
That's a bonus. Yeah, just pictures, but I think it's so breathtaking, and not everybody knows what Ireland is, but it's really beautiful at times. Although the weather can be interesting, you can have 4 seasons in a day, but it is still really nice, and there's always nice hideouts. Adapt to Irish time. I don't know. I think in business it's very punctual, but in social settings, I felt that time can be more fluid. Although people say 8-ish, it means a little bit later. There's some jokes. Irish events start 30 minutes late and finish 30 minutes early. And that is that saying that I know really well, but maybe I'm the only one. When God created time, he created plenty of it. For me as a Dutchman, I feel, although I also had that thing with the presentation in Canada, but there is from our perspective, there is more courtesy in language that's being used. So there is a little bit more please or excuse me or sorry or thank you, and that needs to be. And I need to kind of memorize myself, like, please, now is a good time to use that. And so I try. So it's a bit more, yeah, like in Asia, you also need to be aware of it. And I think for Germans or Scandinavians or Dutchies, this would be a bit challenging and also good for us. Yep. Food, and we also included drinks in it. When I was young, my dad, in love with Ireland, always needed to make those stews. I didn't really like them, but when I grew older, I also started to like other things that Ireland produces. What I noticed is that there's always a kettle on within seconds the moment, and it's part of hospitality. Is like, they're the same in the Middle East, but in Ireland it's definitely like that. And I was a bit surprised, but then again, I'm not. The Irish are the second biggest tea drinkers after the Turks worldwide. If you look at how many kilograms of tea a person would use per capita, that's really a lot. So expect tea at every turn.
Yeah, I agree with Sander in terms of the stew, but I definitely do miss Irish food. Definitely took it for granted. The steak, eggs, chicken, dairy, seafood, and tea, of course. All of those things really make Ireland's food culture pretty special. The Irish steaks, for example, are incredible. I could talk about them for ages, genuinely. Grass-fed cattle really gives that meat that kind of rich flavor. Eggs have that kind of bright orange yolk, comes from the free-range hens. Chicken, tender, flavorful, raised on these small farms with an abundance of greenery and care. And then dairy obviously shines too. I think we're known for our Kerrygold, which is one of our biggest exports. For Ireland. And then seafood, incredible. It's a treat. You got fresh oysters, salmon that comes, straight from the Atlantic. So I think, we're really spoiled for food and quality. And that's something I kind of took for granted living in Ireland, stop being here. Guinness, couldn't, make a presentation without talking about Guinness. And I'm going to be a really traditional Irish man here and say I absolutely miss Guinness so much. And whenever I'm back in Dublin, it's literally the only pint I order. I honestly think nothing compares to it. It's, it's perfect, bitter, sweet, creamy. It's beautiful looking. We got that, layer of tan head on the top of it. And if you are interested in Amsterdam, I think O'Donnell's in the Pipe has the best Guinness. But for the true experience in Ireland, that really kind of comes in these small, kind of quaint, countryside pubs that have been around for centuries. They clean the lines religiously, and they treat the pour of a Guinness as an art, which you might not get in these busy pubs in Dublin. But yeah, as I said, the pour itself for a Guinness is crucial. So people might not know this, but a proper Guinness takes exactly 119.5 seconds to pour. The bartender fills the glass about 3/4 full, lets it settle completely, doesn't touch it, and then pours the remaining quarter to top it off. It's not really just a drink. It's honestly like a ritual of respect in Dublin. And yeah, interesting. It's a challenge that Guinness drinkers would know, probably in UK and Ireland, but if you're not from there, you probably wouldn't. It's called splitting the G. So you can see it there, the photo on the top right corner. You drink in one mouthful just enough so that the kind of remaining liquid, the remaining bottom of the head, perfectly splits the letter G down the middle on the Guinness logo. So yeah, if you are in Ireland, that is, something you could impress the local Guinness drinkers with. And it's actually like a badge of honor if you can split the G. So yeah. Irish sport. Okay, so Irish sport is really, a big thing for the country, and I think the whole nation rallies behind any sports team. This is big sense of camaraderie in Ireland, and I think you won't find that in many other countries. When any Irish team takes a field, male, women, under 20s, men's, whatever, whether it's rugby or, Katie Taylor there in the ring, the whole country honestly seems to kind of pause and tune in. And suddenly, everyone's just kind of armchair expert on scrums or footwork, and pubs really just overflow. And that's, really present during major sporting events, like, the Rugby World Cup, or when, Ireland somehow got to the last 16 the Euros in 2016. And the same thing happens then during the kind of major GAA finals. All Ireland Sunday is practically like a national holiday. The whole country honestly comes to a standstill. When Shane Lowry won the British Open in golf, the scenes at Port Russia were pretty incredible with, thousands of fans singing the fields of Athenry in the pouring rain. And then obviously there on the weekend, if anyone follows, Rory McIlroy finally won his Masters. And, everyone kind of felt like they won the Masters almost. And, everyone kind of cheered every shot like it was a family affair. So, from Cork to Donegal, in Ireland, every kind of sports victory, big or small, honestly becomes a shared triumph.
Yeah, so this is a sport that, much to my surprise, is also played in the Netherlands, and there's international teams. Even Luxembourg is playing in it. So we have truly Benelux, and it was the Gaelic football that actually started this kind of Benelux league, and it's played by 15 people in the team. So it's a little bit bigger, and they can lift it with their hands. They can kick. It's a bit of a mix of football and rugby in a way, but it's not. It's Gaelic football.
Okay, so touching on that kind of camaraderie element and community, this kind of extends beyond sports. So, when Paul Mescal got his Oscar nomination, honestly, wasn't his achievement. Felt like all of Ireland was being, recognised. And you see it, when Irish people meet abroad too. If you run into another Irish person, wherever you are in any sort of foreign country, there's this kind of immediate connection. And honestly, within minutes, you're trying to figure out, like, if you're from the same city, if you have any sort of mutual connections, and like a lot of the time you actually do, which is like kind of weird. But that's the thing about Ireland. It's very tight knit. Community is very close. And where I'm from, Dublin, you actually can't get away with anything because it's that small and everyone knows each other, which can be a bit of a negative at times. And yeah, this kind of unspoken thing that we really do take care of our own. And that sense of kind of solidarity comes from, our history, small island, faced, centuries of, hardship and oppression, from the famine to immigration to our political struggles. And I think that kind of shared experience has kind of created this deep sense that, every Irish person is kind of all in it together. And there's a real big community element in Ireland. Okay, Irish scenery, 50 shades of green. And one thing I have to mention, obviously the scenery of Ireland, and it's something I miss every day, albeit being from Dublin. Kind of landscape has that kind of magical quality, all those changes happen, with weather and light every minute. It can be moody, 1 second, it can be, vivid, bright, sunny the next. Specifically in the West Coast along the Wide Atlantic Way, it's just, completely stunning, as you can kind of see from the photos. Those dramatic cliffs of places like the Cliffs of Moher, where you can kind of stand like at the edge of Europe, honestly, and stare down at America with nothing in front of you but just, ocean and the coastline. In Connemara and Kerry, you've got these, incredible mountains. And then in places like Donegal, you got these like incredible beaches, which is the photo just in the top there, where the ocean honestly looks like something out of the Mediterranean, which is really cool. And what I love about kind of Irish scenery the most is kind of how accessible it all is. So, being from Dublin, which is the capital city, obviously, you're still within like 30 minutes of, the Dublin Mountains or Glendalough that have these kind of, incredible views and, kind of vivid scenery. And, there's something about the Irish landscape that honestly kind of gets under your skin. I think Sander kind of touched about his resonance with Ireland earlier. But, it becomes part of your identity and you do really resonate with it. So if you do visit Ireland, don't just stay in the cities, rent a car, take some country roads, and you can kind of, experience all of Ireland, what it has to offer.
Well said.
Okay, the Irish wake. This is something, if you really want to understand Irish culture at its deepest level, then you kind of have to know what the Irish wake is, or a wake. This is a tradition that goes back centuries. When someone dies, before their funeral, a day or two before, their body is brought home and kind of laid out in the families, traditionally like the good room. So, the living space, which is maybe traditionally off limits or something. And family, friends, neighbors, kind of anyone who knew the deceased comes over, pays respects. People enter quietly, pray by the coffin, whatever, offer their condolences. And then kind of as the hours pass by, people start eating, cups of tea kind of turn into whiskey, and stout, and the stories flowing. And it ends up by the end of the wake turning into pretty much just like a full-on party, which is pretty much just like everyone's just drinking together and just celebrating the life of the dead person. So it's completely like the opposite to a funeral. It's not somber at all. It's celebrations and laughs and jokes, which is quite interesting, and I think that's quite unique about Irish culture. And as maybe Ireland has modernized, the wakes maybe aren't in the homes as often, but they are in kind of traditional funeral homes. But that kind of essential character of celebration, storytelling, and laughter, still remains to this day.
So one of the best days that you'll have in Ireland is the first day of summer. So it won't necessarily be a warm day. If it's 16 degrees outside, you see everyone in the country's outside in shorts and flip-flops like it's 30 degrees. So people take this day as like nearly a national holiday. There's people out drinking in the sun. Beaches are packed, even though the water is probably -3 degrees. And everyone's queuing up at the ice cream van, barbecues in the garden. By the evening, it's probably raining or even snowing. So you'll find music, kids running wild, and it's chaotic and fun, and somehow everybody's happy, even though it's probably still quite cold. So no one cares that it's not that warm. When the sun comes out, everybody's out and hanging out together.
Okay, yeah. So Ireland has transformed kind of not just from that tourist hotspot, but definitely into one of Europe's kind of leading business hubs, if not the biggest business hub. So companies like Google, Facebook, TikTok, Apple, they all have their headquarters, European headquarters in Dublin. Sorry, not just in Dublin, but all around Ireland. And they didn't just come for the low corporate tax, albeit that's very favourable. But, we do have a kind of unique offering, the only native English speaking country in Europe. We bridge that gap between North America and Europe. Time zones overlap with both US and Asia. And we do have, really educated, wide talent pool. 40% of our population is under 30, and then we have some really world-class universities which focus heavily on skills for tech and finance. And then Ireland also welcomes a lot of international talent. So we've got fast track, kind of visa routes, like the critical skills employment permits, which has like a clear path to residency. And we've really made it easy on purpose for professionals to kind of build careers here. So if you are considering a career abroad, I'd say consider Ireland, because it's a great place for a career in Europe.
Yeah.
Okay, top 5 Irish experiences you can't miss. So traditional music sessions, and this can be in Temple Bar there, but I would avoid that. But you pop into any kind of small pub in Ireland, and chances are you'll kind of catch this impromptu music session, no cover charge, no set lists, slow ballads, fast reels, relaxed enough that you can kind of clap along or even ask for a tune. And like Sander touched on about music, it's a great way to hang out with people of all ages, and you can kind of, get a real feel for how music fits into daily life in Ireland, both past and present. Wild Atlantic Way coastline, spoke about it earlier. It's a drive or it can be a hike along Ireland's west coast. Cliffs of Moher, you can wander the Ring of Kerry roads, or as I said, check out Donegal's kind of quiet beaches. But as I said, the scenery really shifts depending on the day and weather. So some days it's grey and moody, other days are bright and clear. So I would say try to visit kind of multiple spots if you can, because maybe you will get a chance at experiencing both, the moody days, but also the bright days. GAA match day, so watching a GAA game, fans turn up in county colours, sing a few songs. You can pack out stadiums like Croke Park with 80,000 people, which is really surprising. We find out that the players aren't actually paid professionals, so they're all still amateurs. But they are, in every sense of the word, professionals. But it's really impressive, and they're out there for the love of the game and the love of their county, and honestly the love of Ireland. Dublin, Trinity College. You can stroll through Trinity, see the Book of Kells, or imagine you were on the set of Normal People, if that's your thing. Full Irish and a spice bag. So full Irish breakfast is incredible: bacon, rashers, sausages, black and white pudding, eggs, tomato, mushrooms, toast, loads of butter, and then a spice bag, which has become like a reasonable trend on TikTok. If anyone's seen it, you get it from like a Chinese takeaway or kind of fast food place. You can see what it is there, top right. It's pretty much just fries, shredded chicken, peppers, onions, seasoning, but it's pretty unique to Ireland and people seem to love it. So I would say give it a go. Okay, so global Irishness. I think when it comes to global influence, I think Ireland definitely punches way above its weight. For a country of just 5 or so million, our diaspora is massive. There's 70 million people worldwide who claim Irish ancestry. Don't know how linked they actually are to Ireland, but that's what they claim. Irish culture is really traveled anywhere and everywhere. So I think we mentioned earlier, but Irish pubs are in every major city across the world, multiple in every major city across the world. Tokyo, Buenos Aires, Dubai, wherever. They've been pretty universal spaces of getting a good pint and having a consistent good time. Our national holiday, St. Patrick's Day, is celebrated globally in a way that's doesn't really make any sense, and it's honestly celebrated more probably abroad than it is celebrated in Dublin. So as you can see here, that river in Chicago turns green. Sydney Opera House lit up emeralds, and even in the past, Great Wall of China was like illuminated green. So it's pretty cool to see how this small island's celebration has become like global. And as well, what's kind of striking about being Irish is how positive it's received globally for the most part. I think our kind of cultural influence has honestly created this like goodwill that opens doors in business, politics, relationships in general. And that's something that's genuinely real and special that I've experienced firsthand, while living abroad and being a tourist.
Yeah, this is the company that's mainly responsible for all these Irish bars. I think the last few years they've made 4,000 worldwide, and I see Irish pubs all over the globe. If it's a tiny village in Kazakhstan or everywhere you have them, and they can just ship some containers, and within a few weeks you have a genuine Irish pub wherever you live. And yeah, they are connected to the Guinness corporation, and yeah, so they're doing the investment. But it went really fast, because when I was young, you didn't have that. You just had Irish pubs in Ireland, and now they're everywhere. In Amsterdam, I'm surrounded by them, actually. So yeah, that is something about what I felt as a pub when I was a kid. I don't think ever I was in a bar in the Netherlands, but when we were in Ireland, it was all the time. And apparently that's a place where you actually can go with children. And that's why I call it the living room with the bar, because it is a kind of, yeah, it's a social hub. It is where a lot of community takes place, and maybe it's more about community than alcohol. And sometimes when the rainy weather starts, all of a sudden, actually, pub it's a great refuge.
Okay, the Irish mammy, or the mother, which is honestly the heart and soul of Ireland. So if you want to kind of learn about Ireland as well, the kind of Irish mother is like revered as its like national institution. I don't think you can really understand Ireland without kind of understanding the mother, or the mammy, is what they're kind of known as collectively. Yeah, I think for the millions of Irish people who've had to leave Ireland, the mum is the emotional anchor to home. And I think what's really significant about the kind of mammy is, how they've kind of emerged from Ireland's tough history always, famine, poverty, mass immigration. Mums really kept families together with practically nothing. And I think most Irish people would tell you that they are, the unsung heroes of Irish society. And I think what makes, the Irish mammy special is how they've kind of captured the national character of Ireland. I think, she's the soul of kind of Ireland distilled into kind of one force of nature almost, that no one can really resist. So that is kind of something worth knowing.
Okay, so lately it feels like Irish talent is everywhere in pop culture, which is really amazing to see. So even though we're a small country, as said, with just over 5 million people, we've made a huge impact. So like some examples in the last few years are Cillian Murphy became the first Irish-born performer to win an Oscar. Saoirse Ronan appeared in movies like Lady Bird and Little Women. Barry Keoghan grabbed everyone's attention in Saltburn, and the Irish-speaking rap group Kneecap is blowing up internationally. But how has such a small country managed to produce such big names? So it comes down to who we are. So Ireland has a strong tradition of storytelling, creativity, and a way of expressing things that's just really unique. So we're really known for our sense of humor, our honesty, heart, and it connects with people all over the world. So Irish voices have been heard more and more, and people are loving what they're hearing. So although having more people in the limelight has helped make people more aware, there's still a few challenges when we go abroad. So generally, people do really like the Irish, and we have a really good reputation. And people tend to light up when they hear you're from Ireland, and they expect you to be friendly, have good humor, and maybe tell a story or two over a pint. But with that also comes a few challenges. So there's definitely a stereotype, for one, that all Irish people are partying, making jokes, which can make some more serious situations difficult to navigate. And then there's the struggle of being from a small country that not a lot of people understand. So people mix it up with the UK. They ask strange questions about leprechauns. They assume we all live in tiny villages surrounded by sheep, and that we all love Conor McGregor. So it can be funny, but also frustrating when you want people to see Ireland as a modern, creative place. So there's pride that comes with being Irish abroad, and we do carry a culture that people genuinely respect and enjoy, and that's something to definitely be proud of. But sometimes that means we have to break through the cliches and show everybody the full picture.
Yeah, 12 pubs. Okay, so yeah, 12 pubs. I think it's unique to Ireland. I might call on one of the audience here. Sam, do you have this in Scotland?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, 12 pubs. But okay, this is then my favorite day in the Irish calendar year. Well, it can be across a week or two. Well, sorry, 1 week pretty much. Usually like the 15th to the 22nd, or sorry, 23rd of December. But what it is big, merry adventure across your local town, your city. you and your friends hit 12 pubs, as in one drink in each pub. Each pub has a kind of unique rule. So you can have a rule like no swearing at one pub, or, you got to all go to the bathroom together at one time and when one pub, or there's no drinking a certain drink at the other. But yeah, you must hit 12 pubs, 12 individual drinks in each pub. But yeah, it's not about just the drinking. It's about the kind of buzz of being with your mates. Like, you go out around 12 pubs period and Christmas kind of season, and there's literally every friend group in the entire country doing this. Everyone's dressed up in Christmas jumpers. Everyone's, singing Christmas songs. The streets are like completely active. The whole country honestly comes alive. Everyone's on that same mission of getting your 12 pubs in. And kind of pulls everyone together, all friend groups of different ages. You'll have work groups, you'll have old men, old women, young men, whatever. But yeah, it's like the country's on one big party, which is pretty common. But yeah, pubs turn into the dance floors and it gets really lively. So yeah, that's my favorite day of the year in Dublin, in Ireland.
So growing up in Ireland, you're surrounded by stories that feel older than the country itself. So Irish mythology isn't just something you read about in school, it's tied into our whole landscape. So it nearly feels like every hill, lake, and monument seems to have a legend attached to it. So these myths have been passed down for generations. One of the most iconic figures in Irish mythology is Cú Chulainn. So he's kind of described as like a mythological Irish superhero nearly. He's got a uniquely Irish edge. He's bold, passionate, and a little bit wild. He was known for his superhuman strength and his ability to enter the ria, which means like a kind of battle frenzy that like nearly transformed his body into something unstoppable. So the most famous story about him was when he single-handedly defended Ulster against an invading army. He fought wave after wave of warriors, often using clever tricks and immense courage to survive. So even though he was a warrior, he was also a tragic figure. This story was told to kids to encourage them that they can get through things. So he was fated to die young, and his story was full of loneliness and sacrifice and impossible choices, which are all classic elements of Irish storytelling. But it was really important, like, for all of our generations to hear the story and hear how someone was able to get through things and defend their pride and honor. Mm-hmm. So religion used to shape nearly every aspect of life in Ireland. For decades, the Catholic Church had huge influence, not just over Sunday Mass, but schools, hospitals, politics, and even personal decisions. So an example of this is the fact that divorce was not legalized in Ireland until 1995, due to the sheer fact that it was not approved by the Catholic Church, as they deemed marriages unbreakable. So everything the Catholic Church said was deemed normal. It was unquestioned and deeply woven into Irish identity. But over the last 30 years, Ireland has changed a lot. Scandals, generational shifts, and a stronger emphasis on human rights has caused a major decline in the influence of the Church. And Ireland is now one of the most progressive countries in Europe. That said, religion still holds like a heavy cultural weight. Christmas and Easter are still really big, and many people identify as a Catholic or Protestant, more from tradition than practice. So there's definitely respect for the past for religion, but the focus is now on choice and progress. So it's definitely not gone in modern Ireland, but it's no longer the loudest voice in the room.
Yes, let us reflect a little bit, because you're both Irish, you're now living here in the Netherlands, and I'm a little bit interested. What is it like? What do you feel? What do you experience? What is, what could you elaborate on that, please, both?
So I found from living in the Netherlands that it's just like, it's an amazing country. It's a really great place because you get to meet people from all over the world. So living here as an exchange student has just been incredible. So it's like the city's like a magnet for people from every different country and culture, and you're always bound to bump into new people. There's also like everybody speaks perfect English, so you never have to worry about the language barrier or anything. And there's always loads of international events and that kind of thing. But then to kind of tie into that, it can be quite hard to meet actual Dutch people. They tend to stick to themselves and hang around with other Dutchies rather than international students.
Yeah, it's kind of one observation for myself. I think, the Dutch have this reputation of being kind of really forward and kind of maybe blunt. But I actually kind of like it. I had a kind of encounter the other day where I was just like in the gym and some guy just kind of just started talking to me and like asking like, what I do and like where I'm from, which I thought was kind of interesting. Because that just would never happen in Ireland, you know what I mean? Like he just like didn't really care about the kind of maybe social barrier and social anxiety. Like he just went up and started talking to me, and that's kind of what I've noticed with Dutch guys and Dutch people in general. I think they're kind of forward in a good way. There's no real kind of social anxiety. I think there's a lot of kind of genuine conversations. Irish people kind of tend to shy away from maybe awkwardness, and may not put themselves, kind of forward and maybe vulnerable positions, like the guy said to me the other day. I could have literally given him a cold shoulder or something. So I think that's always on Irish people's minds, which I don't think is on people's minds here. Another thing, negative, just a selfish reason, there's not enough bank holidays like there is back home, which isn't great. So tomorrow is a bank holiday, but it isn't here. So actually I did take a day off, but I would have been working anyway. So that is maybe one negative for me.
Yeah, thank you. There is the Ireland-Netherlands Business Association, since we do call ourselves cross-cultural business skills. But these are interesting networks. You, as students, are now at an age that you become also attractive to members of such associations. I tend to myself always make a lot of use of it, especially if I'm visiting other cultures. I often am a speaker for the Dutch Business Club or this or that. But funny enough, you often meet also high-ranking governmental, including prime ministers. They're sitting front row. I think, incredible, that's the prime minister. If only I would have known that he was coming, I would have prepared better. But then it's too late. So there's that one. There's plenty of other ones, and I was amazed by the amount of Irishness that we have available in the country, not just in the capital, also in smaller places. There's quite an active group in The Hague, and they do all kind of, including all literature and a lot, and that surprised me. There's a very active folk scene. This is Enterprise Island, which is of course a governmental agency, but then again also a very good way to meet interested parties, and also for you maybe looking for work placements. Ireland is, like George said, is a very good option. If I look from hierarchy and these kind of things, then I would say that Ireland is super open, relatively class-free, at least this century. It's also really friendly. It's always on first names, open doors. But I would also like to warn you that the informality may mask authority, because the decision is really taken on top. And for those of you with a more Dutch Scandinavian background, where you would like it to be, it might not really be that way. A couple of people I talked to that worked in Dublin and really love it. Also noticed that sometimes if there is problems, it might not so much be about finding a solution, but also who's to blame. And that is something they didn't have a good answer to. So that's something that you need to be aware of, so that you document your things, or you also stand up for what you believe is right. Luckily in Ireland, there is a saying, there are no strangers here, only friends you haven't met yet. How lovely is that? This is the typical, the Sanderisms, where I compare. These are the things like Trompenaars Hofstede, Schwartz, the European Values Survey. There is a lot. Also the Globe, and actually also the CCBS rankings. What I've done is that I've taken a selection from it, and I show you that actually what I always say, those who fail to prepare to fail. Well, that does apply in a way to almost everything. Only thing here it would be more or less the same, the amount of individuality. But for instance, the straightforwardness of the Dutchies, that is something that you need to be aware of. So if you're active in Ireland, it might not be a clear no. It might be, yeah, maybe, or it could be a little bit more neutral. And then you actually need to look for clues and context. And that is something that if you're very direct, you might miss. And as you can see, a lot of your social strategies, if you just feel like, well, I speak good enough English, I'll just be myself, that's not the best way to integrate. I think the best way to integrate is to look around you really well and try to clone what you see and try to also understand and try to follow that. And if you recognize those patterns, if you have an awareness and an openness to what's happening, you quickly see that. And my advice would be try to blend in, and you do that by copying what you see. And that works. That works in Afghanistan. That works in Peru, and it certainly works like a charm in Ireland.
So from being in the Netherlands, obviously there's a lot we miss from home, and the top two that I've kind of thought were the people and the drinking culture. So from the people, I don't just mean family and friends. I mean more how people are, their friendliness, sense of humor. So there's something special about how warm and open everyone is back home. Like strangers say hello. You always smile at people on the streets. You say thank you to people. You're very polite. Everyone's very open. It's the humor as well. It's dry, quick, and effortless, and everyone's got a comeback or a mad story to something you've said. So it makes every interaction a bit lighter, a bit funnier. So living somewhere else, you start to notice how rare it is, and people don't really talk to each other that much on the street. If I smile at someone, they do tend to look a bit confused. Then the drinking culture as well, crack at home. So as said, it's not like a night out anywhere else. The pubs have a really cozy feel, and honestly sometimes it is a bit more about the atmosphere, just the alcohol. People go out for a chat, to laugh, to hear some live music, and just to enjoy each other's company, which I think there's something really genuine about. It's really social and warm. Now that said, the drinks do flow and you might remember much of these conversations the next morning, but it's something really different that you don't really get anywhere else other than Ireland.
I think I'd probably miss the food the most. I used to eat steak, well, maybe once or twice a week back home, and I remember coming over here and honestly being shocked by the quality in Lidl and Albert Heijn, and I haven't eaten the steak since. So that's probably the only thing I miss from home. I do love Amsterdam. I love the Netherlands. But similar countries. But yeah, that's the thing I miss the most, the food.
Yeah, thank you. If this is close to where I live, and I think my 12 pubs, I can do it in 10 minutes. It's just, splitting the G, that's going to be the challenge. But there is so many Irish pubs, including also here there is some where you have live music every night from 7 until they close. So there is so much Irish culture just around me if I want. And so we're not far, and that's a good reason. Yeah.
Okay, guess the slang here. So I'm going to need some audience participation. Okay, first one is pretty easy. I'm grand. Just fire away.
I'm good.
Okay, Sam. So this is Sam. You're not allowed to answer these anymore. Sam, I need someone else, please. Okay, he's already given away. Yeah, I'm grand is just pretty much I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm doing well. I'm grand. Next one. What's the story?
How you doing?
Correct. How are you? Whatever. 3. Come here to me.
Is it sexual or?
No. Any guesses? Come here to me. Okay, so it's pretty much like a way of kind of starting a conversation when you want to kind of say something. So, if something happened to you last night, you'd be like, oh, come here to me. Do you want to know what happened last night? Something like that. But it actually doesn't really mean that much. It's honestly just like an intro to whatever you're about to say, whatever kind of shocking or interesting thing you're going to have to say. Next one, sure, look. Any takers? No takers. Okay. So that's pretty much just like it is what it is. Sure, look. Sure, listen. It's all right. It's grand. That's what that means. Taking the piss.
Making a joke on someone?
That's correct. Thank you. That's correct. To make fun of something, take the piss out of someone, you're making fun of someone. He took the piss. Yeah, whatever. The head on him or the head on her. No, okay. So that's pretty much just like an expression of like disbelief or like amazement at something someone's done. So the head on him, like what's he doing? You know, what's he asked? That kind of thing, if you get it. Use, Y-O-U-S. That is the plural of you. So you people use, yeah. Are yous coming to the pub tonight? Are yous going to the game? Whatever. Okay, well, sure, you know yourself. Okay, this also doesn't really mean that much. It's just one of a vague phrase. It can kind of mean anything. It's kind of used when like you don't want to give a direct answer. And maybe if you were up to something you shouldn't have been, it's like, where were you? How you know yourself? That kind of thing. Acting the maggot. Okay, wiping the floor here. That just means, you know, you're messing around, you're being, you know, silly, whatever, taking the piss, you're acting the maggot. Okay, so I will in me hole.
Is that staying home?
Guess? Huh?
Is that staying home?
No. It's hole, H-O-L-E, but no, it's not. Good guess though. I will in me hole. So hole comes from like assholes, pretty much. So it's just like I will in my hole. Like I'm not doing that. Like you're not going to do anything. Aegis. Okay, similar to being like acting the magus, you know, it's a fool, it's a silly person, drunk person, someone acting stupid, you know, he's an aegis, he's an absolute aegis. Okay, I'm out of it, or people say over, I'm over. Does anyone know what that means? Any guesses? I'm out of it.
Drunk?
If you're drunk.
That's the one. There we go. Thank you. Last one about it. Yeah. Thank you. That's the slang.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So I think I hope that that we are able to convince the audience that they should right now today buy tickets. How do we do that? What is the best time for us?
So from Amsterdam to Dublin, if you fly with Ryanair, the flights typically start at $19.99. So if you book in advance, so everybody book now for summer. If you want to be there in the warmest, nicest weather to do the sightseeing and outdoor activities, we'd recommend going June to August so that you really get in the most amount of time in the day. Now, it is peak tourist season, so expect larger crowds and for it to be slightly more expensive. But if you want to go at a cheaper, less touristy time, if you go between April and May and September and October, you still get to see some great views and at a reasonably good price.
For me, I'd say honestly go in like December period, like around Christmas, like around that kind of 12 pubs time. It's like I think that's the best time of the year in Ireland. Like it's kind of wholesome, you know, there's Christmas lights up everywhere, you know, everyone's in good spirits, it's not too cold, and you would genuinely have a good time. So that would be my recommendation. December.
Yes. Having said that, I want to thank my two Irish children for doing a fantastic job. I think you gave the audience and also those viewing the video later a fantastic small hour of Ireland. I've learned a great deal and I've been so many times to the island. So thank you so much. I here say goodbye to the viewers watching the video, and we will slowly move into the question and answers. Ask anything you always wanted to ask an Irishman. Bye-bye.